At the height of the Second World War, the Allied forces were planning a secret mission to invade Nazi-occupied Sicily. In order to confuse the Germans, they devised an audacious and utterly bizarre plan, a plan which hinged on the ultimate success of one man. A man who was already dead. On April 30th, 1943, a Spanish fisherman discovered the body of a British soldier off the coast of Spain. The dead soldier had a briefcase handcuffed to his wrist. The Nazis got a hold of the body and examined the man and his possessions. What they uncovered astounded them. The dead soldier carried letters which described critical details of the Allies' plan to invade Greece. Nazi officials, including Hitler himself, were convinced they had stumbled upon the greatest military intercept of the Second World War. The only issue for the Nazis was the dead soldier and all of the details outlining the pending invasion were a fantastical ruse designed to foil the German army. The idea was conceived by a group within British intelligence, which included Ian Fleming. Yep, the guy who wrote James Bond. To pull it off, the team had procured the body of a 34-year-old man who had died the month before. They gave the guy a uniform, a fake passport, theater tickets, a picture of a girlfriend, and even loose tobacco to make him appear real. They drove from London to Scotland, and they put it on a submarine. 2 days later, the body was placed in the ocean, where it was later found. Hitler was so convinced that he moved the bulk of his forces to Greece in preparation for the pending invasion. An invasion that never came. So, when the Allies landed in Sicily, they encountered a whole lot less resistance, occupied southern Italy, and ultimately changed the course of the war, thanks to one dead man and a crazy plan.
Once upon a time, a war was about to happen. The battle lines were drawn, the soldiers were in place, ready to fight. But a higher power made them stop. Something unexpected and delicious. A warm milk soup. Our story starts here, in the Swiss countryside in Kappel am Albis, where our special peacekeeper dish was created almost 5 centuries ago. Legend has it, actually, let's get Georg on the phone. He's a historian from the University of Basel, and he knows this milk soup so well, he's even written articles about it.
Die Milchsuppe ist eine Legende. Das bezieht sich auf eine Kriegskonfliktsituation 1529, in der 2 Parteien, die Katholiken und die Reformierten, kriegerisch einander gegenüberstanden. Die Geschichte erzählt, dass die Anführer der beiden Kriegsparteien verhandelt haben und dass in der Zwischenzeit das Fußvolk, die Soldaten der beiden Parteien, einander gegenüberstanden und es dann zu einer Fraternisierung gekommen ist.
After a while, the soldiers got tired and hungry, so they put what food they had together. The Catholics brought the milk, and the Protestants the bread. And together, they made the legendary milk soup. This halted the battle, and a truce was formed. The soup became so iconic, it has a memorial in the battlefield. And nearly 500 years later, the soup is still playing peacemaker.
Wunderbar.
And this is Robert, whose restaurant has been serving the stuff for many years.
Man kann diese Suppe auch nehmen, wenn man irgendwelche Differenzen hatte und am Schluss dann wieder friedlich und dann kann man das Ganze als Friedenssuppe benennen.
He makes the soup the modern way, with milk and bread of course, but also with butter, onions, leek, cream, vegetable stock and some salt and pepper.
Es schmeckt sehr cremig und leicht Käse. Ganz leicht wie Käsefondue, aber leichter. Ich hab's gerne.
So next time you're upset about something with your neighbour, do as the Swiss do. You bring the bread, have them bring the milk, and have a bowl of soup together.
World War II saw lots of heroes. Winston Churchill, Charles de Gaulle, Commander Eisenhower, but one you probably don't recognize is Smokey, a Yorkshire Terrier and the tiniest war hero of all time.
I feel Smokey and I were destined to be together.
That's Bill Wynn, a corporal at the time and Smokey's owner. He bought Smokey for $6.44 during his time serving in the Pacific Theater.
I think that if she'd fallen in anyone else's hands, she would never have been what she was.
And she was remarkable. Smokey followed Bill through 150 air raids, 12 combat missions, and once even led Bill to safety during a Japanese bombing.
Kaboom, kaboom, kaboom. Well, we'd look around. We got 8 of our buddies all wounded around where Smokey and I were. If Smokey hadn't taken me there, I would have been standing with the other guys.
Good dog.
Smokey also accompanied nurses on their rounds at a U.S. Army hospital in New Guinea.
Smokey gets credit for being the first therapy dog on record.
Back in Bill's hometown of Cleveland, Smokey became famous doing tricks on TV shows.
She could walk on a drum. She could ride a scooter.
Smokey died a celebrity in 1957, but she wasn't forgotten. She has memorials in
Ohio, Pennsylvania, Australia, Hawaii, Tennessee.
But her biggest legacy? Popular belief is that Smokey's the reason that Yorkies are such a popular pet. So thank Smokey the World War II dog for all those cute little Yorkies.
You remember this can. The sweet sauce, the soft noodle. This was childhood. But did you know that Chef Boyardee was an actual chef? He was. His name was Hector, and he made a mean pasta sauce. But it wasn't Hector's sauce that made Chef Boyardee the household name that it is today. You can thank the U.S. military for that. In the 1930s, Hector Boyardee opened up an Italian restaurant in Ohio, and everyone was like,
"Oh my God, I love your sauce."
So he started selling it, and he sold a lot of it. A lot. By 1938, he had opened up his own factory, selling his sauce and pasta canned.
Ask for Chef Boyardee's spaghetti dinner. Only about 15 cents a serving.
Then, World War II happened, and a phone call was made. The U.S. military called Hector and said something like,
"Help make food for the troops."
He already had the canning infrastructure, so Hector said,
"Yeah, all right."
His company shifted from a civilian consumer base to a military one. Chef Boyardee became the largest supplier of rations to U.S. and Allied forces. Production was happening 24/7. By the end of the war, the factory was too large, and the military demand no longer existed. Hector didn't know what to do. So he sold it to this large company called American Home Products, who were all like,
"We got this."
They quickly rebranded and distributed the can as easy-to-make at-home meals and filled supermarket shelves across the United States. So today, when we buy Chef Boyardee, we're actually eating rebranded World War II field rations. Yep.
In southern Pennsylvania, there is a battlefield. A battlefield so important that it is thought to be the turning point of the American Civil War. This is a story about that place. It's also a story about cats. Thousands and thousands of little cats. This is Rebecca.
Hi, I'm Rebecca.
And this is her twin sister, Ruth.
Hi, I'm Ruth, and we run a museum of dioramas that are made with handmade Civil War cats.
Civil War cats. The combination of a childhood love for clay cats and a strong fascination with the American Civil War.
It started out as a hobby that we just did as kids putzing around in our bedrooms.
That bit of child's play led to a full-fledged museum, which opened in 2013.
The two of us discussed how much do we want to emphasize the cat thing, because we don't want to come off as cutesy cats. The idea is the stories of the men, not so much the fact that they're cats. They just are cats because they're cats.
Incredibly, each of these scenes is to scale.
1/8 of an inch equals 1 foot in cat feet. And so each one of our soldiers represents one soldier who would have been on the field. We'll calculate the numbers that would have been left in the regiment and we'll fill it in with that many cat soldiers. So for example, Little Round Top, we're going to eventually have about 5,000 soldiers on it. Typically one like the Angle, we figure took us about 4.5 years. The Little Round Top diorama, we figure is more of a 5 or 6 year diorama. Oh, look. We really just want to make the Civil War more approachable, I guess, for people, so they can relate to the history and have more of a connection with the men and the women involved. Now that the word of this cat museum's out, all the people who love cats come in, and now not only are they seeing our dioramas and falling in love with the 5,500 little furry smiles smiling at them, but they're also learning the stories, and suddenly they have an appreciation of Gettysburg and the history just because they came to see the cats.
Tootsie Rolls seems simple enough, that piece of gooey chocolate wrapped up in a perfect little bite. But believe it or not, these tasty treats saved the lives of US Marines in the Korean War.
So good.
In 1950, at the North Korean Chosin Reservoir, US Marine troops were engaged in battle. The Marines were running out of ammunition and called for an airdrop of 60mm mortar rounds. Codename for these bullets? Tootsie Roll. When the supplies fell from the sky, troops were surprised to find boxes filled with the actual candies.
Where are the bullets?
This fluke turned out to be a blessing in disguise. Freezing cold temperatures had cracked vehicle fuel lines, leaving troops stranded. And although the candies were frozen, they softened easily in the mouths of servicemen.
So good.
Marines quickly realized they could melt the candies down to a putty and seal the broken pipes.
Good as new.
When the chocolate refroze, they were able to drive to safety in their newly functional vehicles. The Marines who successfully escaped the reservoir admit that Tootsie Rolls had a big hand in their survival, and they call themselves the Chosen Few. I'd call that a pretty sweet victory.